Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me here on Faith by Hearing. Don't mind the storm rolling in behind me. Let's hope that I can make it through this recording before anything crazy happens. But yeah, let's jump back into John chapter 4. If you remember our last episode, I told you we'd be walking through this kind of slow. I just felt like there was so much here that we could really spend some good time on. Last episode we looked at the first 26 verses of John 4. We kind of zoomed through it, but it's this famous encounter of Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman at the well. And just to recap a little bit, we remember the Jews and the Samaritans, they just didn't mix at all, right? And Jesus, this guy who's born a Jew, he's having to pass through Samaria on his way to Galilee. And he stops middle of the day, he's tired, and he stops there at this well. And this woman walks up from Samaria, and he asks her for a drink, which is, he's kind of setting her up to have this conversation with her, if you recall. And she basically says, well, he asks her for a drink, and she's basically like, you know, you're a Jew. I'm surprised that you're even willing to talk to me. Usually the Jews would look down on the Samaritans. But he's like, well, or she says, why would you even be asking me for a drink? And that's the setup that Jesus used to go into this conversation about the living water with her. And he's like, you know, if you even knew what I was capable of, there's this living water that I can give that would cause you to thirst no more. And remember, we talked about this was not a physical thirst, this was a spiritual thirst that he would be able to quench for her. It was great stuff. If you want to know more, go check out that last episode. It's up on the channel. Today I want to do the second part of this encounter, and we're going to focus on verses 27 through 42. That's another big chunk, but we'll try to zoom through it as best as we can here. Like last week, we won't read all of it, but I just want to work our way through it in a way that's hopefully helpful to us. Let me point out two key things first before we get rolling. We kind of skipped over this in our last episode, but it helps set the scene for what we're going to talk about today. So number one, if you just recap back at verses 15 through 18 of John chapter 4, verses 15 through 18, if the wind don't make me lose my pages here, verses 15 through 18, she asks him for a drink of this living water that he's talking about. She says, well, how can I get a drink of this? And then he shows her his divine nature, and he says, okay, go call your husband. To which she replies that she does not have one. And he says, yep, you're correct. You've had 5 husbands, and the one you're with right now is not even your husband. So, of course, she's blown away, astonished, like, how does he know this? And she starts to realize that something's up here, right? Something's different about this guy. Then, in verse 25, she says to him, I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. She's shocked and confused. She's like, let's just wait for the Messiah to get here and he can explain to me what's going on here. In verse 26, he replies to her, I, the one speaking to you, am he. He is the Messiah. So he declares himself as this Messiah that she, among many others, have been waiting for. So he's revealed himself as the Messiah to her personally. And we skipped over that last week for just sake of time. But we need to keep that background in mind today for what we're going to look at. And you'll see why. We're going to start with verses 28 through 30 and look at what the woman does in response to what he's told her about the living water and this fact that he's declared himself as the Messiah to her. And there's a lot that we can take away from it and apply to our lives even today. So let's read verses 28 through 30, and then we'll stop there and talk about it a little bit. Verse 28 says, Then the woman left her water jar, went into town, and told the people, Come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They left the town and made their way to him. So short and sweet there. So verses 28. Remember, what was she there to do? She came to this well. She brought this pot for her water. She was coming there for a drink, right? But verse 28 said that she left her water jar and went into town. Now that Jesus has announced himself as the Messiah, he's told her about this living water. He's told her, shown her that he knows her personal life. He's revealed a lot to her here in probably just a really short amount of time. And she leaves her water jar there and goes back into town. So that tells us that this was an urgent matter for her. She was there to get water, and just upon this short conversation with Jesus, she puts it down and goes into town to tell everybody that she can. And I think that's so powerful, because how many of us that have met Jesus have had him save us from our sin and watched him work and do miracles in our own lives? How many of us have experienced those things and we're not so quick to tell others about it? And I'm guilty of that myself, so that's for me. But man, how powerful is that? That she was there for a drink, she was there for a purpose, and she just has this quick little talk with Jesus, and then she runs to town and forgets what she was doing. This was an urgent matter for her to just run to town and tell everybody that she could. I think that's so great. Then look down back at verse 29. She's saying, "Hey, everybody, come see this man. I think it could be the Messiah. It's like there's something different about him. I just know it." And then in verse 30, it says that the people that she told, they followed her back up to the well. So her message did enough to draw them up there to see for themselves. So I think that's also a powerful thing we can apply today, is that sometimes we just got to get the word out there. And we may not have somebody saved right there on the spot and they totally understand the gospel, but there's a lot of power in just trying to draw people in just to come see more for themselves, right? To taste and see. We can't always lead people to submit their lives to Jesus just right off the bat with a short conversation. But we can, for example, we can invite them to church. We can invite them to a Bible study. We can show them a video, whether it's like this or maybe one that's probably a little better quality or whatever. But there's things we can do to plant these seeds and try to draw people in to that way they would want to see more for themselves, if that makes sense. So, but the point is, sometimes we can't expect too much from our own work. We need to do our part and trust that the Lord will do the rest. And we've got to plant the seeds and tell people what we know so that they'll want to come experience more for themselves, like these Samaritans did. She went to town, she told them about this short little encounter, and then they wanted to come see for themselves. So that's a powerful thing. Then we'll see this section. We're actually going to skip verses 31 through 38. And I'll probably even make a part 3 of John chapter 4 just for that section. It's a little bit of change of subject for what I think a good application would be for our life today. So I'll come back to that in our next episode, verses 31 through 38. It's really Jesus talking to his disciples about this encounter. A lot of good stuff there. But for now, let's skip down to verses 39 through 42. And we'll see that remember, she's led these people back up to the well that want to see more for themselves. And here, verses 39 through 42, we're going to see the results and the fruits of her labor and how this turns out for the Samaritans. So we'll sort of summarize here. Verse 39, it says, "Now many Samaritans from that town believed in him because of what the woman said, when she testified, 'He told me everything I ever did.'" So first we see that there are some who believed just because of her word. Let's read the next couple of verses. "So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 days." So this goes back to that there's some that want to see more for themselves. So they get there and they ask Jesus to hang around for a bit so they can get to know him better and just experience him a little more. Verse 41, "Many more believed because of what he said." So some believed when they heard what the woman said. Some were wanting to see more, and they asked Jesus to hang around for a bit. And then it says that some believed because of what he said. Once they got to know Jesus, many more came to faith just based on their time with him. And verse 42, let's finish out this passage. "And they told the woman, 'We no longer believe because of what you said, since we have heard it for ourselves and know that this is really the Savior of the world.'" So again, she couldn't convince everyone on the spot of her encounter with Jesus. Excuse me. She couldn't convince everyone on the spot, but she could draw them in to experience for themselves. So some did believe because of what she said, and it drew some in to experience the Lord for a few days on their own so that they could get a glimpse. And the point is that, again, we have to do our part in planting the seeds and trying to draw people in that they would want to experience more for themselves. Uh, that's if we can produce that desire in somebody or help to produce that desire in somebody, that's a powerful, powerful thing. So we've got a job to do. We've got a part to play in this kingdom work, and we've got to get the good news out there about Jesus, and we can share what He's done in our life and what He means to us, what we've seen Him do. That's how we plant our seeds and get people's wheels turning about what it means to have a relationship with Jesus. And actually, we also need to consider, let's share these things with people that are already believers. I mean, you guys know, if you're a fellow believer out there, sometimes, a lot of times, it's really helpful to hear this good news and encouragement from fellow believers. That helps us to keep going, helps us to keep the faith and give us that little positive nudge to keep going in that right direction, and reminds us that God's always moving. Sometimes in our lives, if it feels a little stagnant for a season, or you wonder what God's doing in your life, to hear that encouragement of what others are seeing and what others are experiencing, that's a help too. So whichever way you want to look at it, whether it's to non-believers or even to fellow believers and family members and friends, we've got a job to do as Christians in sharing what we've seen and what we've experienced in our life with Jesus. So let's do like this woman at the well did. Let's get out there. Let's drop what is important to us in the moment, like she did with her water jar. Let's drop what we're doing and run out there and tell everybody that we can the good news about Jesus. So again, we'll probably jump back up to that section there, verses 31 through 38, for what I think might be our last video on John chapter 4. We'll see what the Lord leads me to do there, but join me next time for that. Well, thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope it's just been a help to you. Thank you very much.